Hello, welcome to today's video. I'm still trying to figure out how to say that. I feel like the saying hello is the hardest part of making these videos. Okay, today we're gonna do response patterns for the sake of healing the emotional body. It might be kind of a short video because we're going to go so deep. So if you are new to me and want to see what this is about before having someone play in your energy, just set your intention to observe only. And it'll be like watching TV. You'll get to hear what I say and decide if it's for you. And if you want to participate in the way that my guidance would work with your guidance to help you heal, then set your intention to participate. Today, we're going to go really deep. So either way, I would say if you have like an important work event or a party tonight, like a special party that you want to be in a good mood for, maybe wait on this video till you have some time to follow it with like, like a nice walk and maybe a nap. The walking is really beneficial when we're moving emotional energy because the emotional center sits right between the sacral ilial area or the ilial bones, I guess they are. I think it's two bones. Anyway, they kind of do this when you're walking around that emotional center, which can really help move the energy. Whereas running, I mean, if you love running, it might be nice too, but running can trigger the fight or flight response. So walking is super helpful. And then sometimes too, when I'm processing a lot, I just like to sleep. So let's go ahead and for those who are participating, prepare. I'm going to ask that I and everybody who's participating be working with our highest level of consciousness and that all the beings that are helping us today be at their highest level of consciousness too and clear of all programs. I'm going to ask that we have some grids around our workspace and that before we even get started, the spaces be cleaned and filled with energy that's helpful and aligned with the highest electromagnetic frequency that's in our highest and best good. This can be really helpful with all the Wi-Fis and whatnot that are in the world today. I'm asking that we all be aligned with divine will. And now I'm going to ask that our souls and every level of our consciousness be educated to our highest good. When I say soul, I'm referring to the aspect of us that's in charge of our incarnational choices. More and more these days, I'm starting to think of soul as a higher level of consciousness than that, but I have two lineages that use the word to define different things. You guys might have other ways you define it. I don't say anybody's wrong. I just think that these words haven't been common enough or understood enough for long enough to be like streamlined yet. So I'm trying to move more towards language of every aspect of ourselves being educated. And that includes the part of us that chooses our incarnations and chooses like our life paths and our agendas. We can change all this. Like we're not married to what we chose before we birth ourselves in. Just like you go to college, you can change your major, right? Like just because you made a choice once doesn't mean you can't change your choice. It's the same in spirit. Okay. There's also aspects of us that hold consciousness and might make choices like our liver. Like a liver, like an individual liver has consciousness and it has consciousness on a lot of layers. Today, we're going to work with the emotional body, specifically emotional boundaries. But I say that in the most like physical sense of emotional boundaries. Our hang on, I'm just waiting for our bodies to catch up a little bit here. Okay, you might be wondering what I'm saying by physical sense of emotional boundaries. if you're not familiar with spiritual anatomy, uh, my guidance considers the first 7 layers of our, or you could say aura, I guess, part of our physical body. So we have the physical layer, which is the most dense, and then a little bit out from there is what we'd call the etheric body, and then the emotional body, and the mental body, astral body, and a few more that are more what we would call like spiritual bodies. Um, and then a lot more beyond that, even too. It's just the first 7 is what's been known for the longest. Uh, each body, for instance, the emotional body, it it's bigger than our physical body, like wider, but it's also all inside our body. So we have an emotional liver, we have a mental, a liver in the, we have a liver in the emotional body, we have a liver in the mental body, we have a liver in the astral body, we have a liver in the etheric template body. All of those bodies have consciousness. So that's why when I ask for a re-education of all of our levels of consciousness and forms, because it is the shape of a liver in the mental body and the emotional body. Well, the emotional body might be a little less shape. It's kind of more cloudy, but some people say it's like the odd number bodies are more structural and kind of look like graph paper. If you want visuals on this, Barbara Brennan has some really good ones, and you can, I haven't looked at them online. I got them at the library, and generally she puts all of her visuals in the middle, so it's really easy to find. So I'm asking that we start the day with a re-education. We're also going to do that after we do a step 2. Let's see. Okay, so today, also, so we're going to change response patterns for the sake of improving our emotional boundaries. When I say boundaries, I'm talking kind of, well, not kind of, I'm talking more in a structural layer, a structural sense than a behavioral sense. Of course, they're going to work together, but you can think of it like a balloon, maybe, that could get a pinprick hole and have a slow leak, or it could be like completely popped and laying at the, like the pieces are at your feet and you've got no boundary. What happens when we don't have boundaries is we start taking on energy from everyone, depending on how big the holes are. Could just, sometimes there will be, like if we have an energetic cord with somebody, we've got the transfer of energy on the cord, but also like the hole around the cord, because the cord pops a hole in the boundaries. Also our own energy, like our resources that we need, can leak out. So emotionally, if we've got trouble with our boundaries, we might be taking on emotions, like you could be taking on the whole world. It's like, this happens to me, it used to happen to me all the time, and it's a lot. It's very hard to function in life when you've got boundary issues. These boundaries might be fine in certain circumstances, and they might go to the floor in others. Or you might be walking around all the time with no boundaries and wonder why nothing that you're trying is working, and that could be part of why. Could be all of why. I mean, it might just be part of why. But at any rate, it's really hard to walk around with no boundaries, and so that's what guidance wanted to help us with today. When I say help us with, guidance has picked something to work on that's broad enough scope that it's relevant to everybody who's going to be participating in this video. It is going to get pretty heavy. That's why we're going to, well, the energy that we're going to be releasing can be some pretty heavy stuff. That's why I say that maybe don't do this if you've got like a lovely party you're going to tonight, because when we've been holding these energies in, the longer, the harder they are, we do feel them a bit on the way out. We don't feel them nearly as much. Like in my experience, nothing I've ever felt in the processing of old energy is worse than the carrying of it. I mean, there are maybe some moments where it's intense, but just living life carrying that, like on like maybe like a duller, less aware of it level, was never easy or good. So like, yeah, it's only been good in my life. However, if you're talking, okay, I want to be really clear here that like psychiatry and medicine are not my scope of practice. So if you have any issues like that, please get the care you need. There's no shame in it. the treatments for that are from spirit too, you know. So like my qigong teacher used to say, like regarding like what's it called, like mental medications, a lot of people that are kind of dancing in the healing realm are like, oh, I don't want to take any sort of psych meds. And I can understand that for, you know, especially the way they can be over prescribed in this world, but like also they can be really good support if they keep you in your body long enough to work on the consciousness. um and there's no need to suffer. Like I think collectively we as a whole in humanity have had a lot of programming, whether it's specifically because of religious lives. I know that there is literally still messaging for that being spoken in current religions, but also like I've had a lot of lifetimes where being a martyr was considered valuable, like a literal martyr. And so suffering was valued. And so that consciousness can carry into this life and in ways that we're not aware of until we start becoming aware of it, which is why I kind of started doing these videos to help people become aware of it. Um, but yeah, I would say set aside any notion you have that there's value in suffering if you're thinking that, like, if you're toying with that idea. Um, if you're real clear that there's no value in suffering on a conscious level, there might be like subconscious programming that still thinks there is, and that's why I work with spirit, is to work with that. Also, maybe there's programming in your liver that still thinks it needs to take on the anger of your ancestors. We make all kinds of agreements to be born into our family that are sometimes based in codependence and not like the divine plan. And so I think as a whole humanity, we're moving past that. We are in this ascension process. If you've heard of that, a lot of you watching this video probably have, since you know that might be how the algorithm brought you to me. But if not, our the planet is on an ascension process. Like the planet held the space for us to do separation energy, which is actually one of the response patterns we're going to work with first. Separations, it has so many forms, and it is kind of the crux of everything that's not working in our lives. But we did it for a reason. We wanted to see what it was like to not feel whole, to not feel as part of the oneness, to feel separated from aspects of our own selves, to feel separated from each other, to feel separated from source. And Earth was willing to hold the space for us to do that, even though it created all kinds of, we felt powerless, things like war and violence and horrible things happen. Earth was like, go ahead and do your learning here. Until now. And we all knew that when we birthed in at this time, but part of the process of being on this planet until now was to forget. And so it's kind of awesome times, epic times on the planet, but it's also, as I think, you don't have to look too hard to see it's a hot mess out there, because all the frequencies as Earth ascends and those lower frequency energies of separation, like violence and cruelty and all that goes along with that, they don't work in the new frequencies that we're moving towards. And so they're coming up to clear. And the people who've benefited from them are holding on with their fingernails, trying to like keep the status quo the way it was. It's not going to stay, but I don't know when it's going to all even out and be smooth. I do say from experience that for me, the more of this work I do, the better I feel. And then the better I feel like I can actually help the world and like humanity and like the animals and the plants and everything that exists here move towards those higher frequencies with more ease and grace and less pain and fear by transforming the consciousness that I'm talking about in these videos. So the response patterns that we're transforming today, guidance tells me that we don't need to do like research on specific past lives, that you guys have already done enough of the consciousness work, that just talking about what patterns we're transforming is going to be enough to kind of tap into that for your guidance to be able to transform the patterns. So we're going to transform separation, self-punishment, worry, and anxiety. Ooh, I'm taking a deep breath. So this is another example of where I was saying, like, sometimes we just say a word that's what all it takes to describe what we're doing. But what guidance is really doing in our body is like many lifetimes worth of unlayering. And whew, I can feel that. So if you need to take a deep breath, please do. We're transforming those to peace, happiness, and self-care. Okay. And we're just allowing guidance to do the work right now. And this is your guidance. Like my guidance is communicating with you, but this is you. And when I say your guidance, it's the highest aspect of you generally working with your helpers, whoever they are for you. And part of the process that we did when we started was asking for that highest aspect of all the beings that you work with. And I'm just going to check in now too, because sometimes when we release old consciousness, we make room to then work with higher consciousness helpers. So I'm going to ask that um, where appropriate to upgrade everyone's guidance. And if you're feeling some resistance at that, like you're like, no, I want to make sure I keep working with my grandma. Well, of course you can. You can work with whoever you want to. But you might want to consider whether it's like, if you want to, well, you might want to consider whether or not it's in the highest and best good for you. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't for either one of you. When I first started doing this work, both my grandmother and the man that I was in love with had died, and they were both on my teams. But when I was new to this, I guess I would say the level of them, because part of it is what level of consciousness with those, I'll use the word soul here and the other way than I was using it before. Now I'm talking about like a higher level of the individuation from source that is us and more than us. Um, but at the time when I first started doing that work, it was not in my highest and best good to have those two, I'll just say beings, on my teams. I know consciously it was stressing me out to think about having the man that I loved on my team when I was like, am I ever going to date again? I feel like I'm betraying him, but I don't want to not have him on my team because I love him and that feels icky to ask him to be removed. So if you're going through any sort of thoughts like that, I get it. And you absolutely don't have to change them. We're only ever going to work with what you want to work with. But you may want to consider that um, sometimes it is nice to release people to so that you and them can move on to something higher. Or sometimes we don't need to release them. We just need to ask that they be elevated, which can be a benefit to them. And then I will also tell you that both my grandma and that man that I love have since been on my teams in different ways at different levels of consciousness. I'm working with much higher aspects of them now. So as I'm talking, Spirit's working on you. You are working on you with the help that we can communicate through our connection through the oneness. Okay, now I'm going to ask guidance to re-educate all levels of and forms of consciousness again, now that we've transformed those response patterns. And if you see my hands moving, I'm using them. One of my hands, I'm using the pendulum so guidance can let me know when to move on. And I forget already if I said that in this video or not, but if not, and you're new to me, I allow my guidance to work through me. The energy comes through my crown chakra and they're moving my hand. I'm not asking the pendulum, I'm using it as a tool. And then my other hand I'm using to just hold energy in different places in my fields, which I am doing also as a surrogate for you. And your hands are also healing tools. So if you feel like moving your hands in any way or putting them on a certain place of your body or out farther in your fields, like right now my left hand is sort of out far, um, sort of straight in front of the solar plexus area, but farther out in the fields, it's now, let me just ask, it's beyond the astral body, which is associated with the heart, and the fourth layer of the field is it, I'm going to use my keyboard on my computer. It's in the seventh layer of the field. Um, I didn't finish that sentence. I used the numbers on my keyboard to ask what layer of the field they were working in. By ask, I mean using my pendulum to dowse. Okay. So now I'm going to ask guidance to set us up for integration. And they're going to do a whole lot of work in this too. Let me ask this. They're going to clear all the discordant programs that are running right now. They're going to do etheric surgery. Because of those changes that we did that I talked through, now guidance can go in and do a whole lot of structural repair, replacement, removing objects that don't belong. Objects can include things like weapons. If we were killed in a life, when we're killed by something, we don't have time to process the energy. So, gosh, there was a time when I was first working with this. I pulled so many sharp objects out of my abdomen for months. I was pulling them out. Some of the devices we put in on purpose, like to make sure we learn whatever lesson we thought we needed to learn, sometimes that we continue to be punished or have no good in our life. Because we make those choices because we've done things like kill people and do horrible things in other lives. I'm using the word horrible. We judge ourselves, like we're the ones doing it. We're not being punished by an outside force. Of course, we can draw in discordant energy from outside forces if we have programming and consciousness to do so. I'm not saying that we just exist in a vacuum. And that's why having boundaries having optimal boundaries is one of the reasons that, so helpful is we don't want to be drawing in discordant energy that's not ours anymore. And it's time to let go of the notion that we need to be punished for every bad thing we've ever done. Okay, guidance says that that is enough for today, that we're set up for integration. I'm just asking how long it's going to take to integrate the work that we did today. Everything that we just did is going to take like 4 months to integrate that. But in terms of like the heightened self-care, give yourself about 2 days where you don't drink alcohol if you can avoid it. If you do drink it, just be aware that you might get drunk a lot faster than you normally would on very little. Hold off on having like a Reiki session for 2 days. We just kind of want to leave the Band-Aid on. They are doing etheric surgery. Okay, yeah, that's it for today. I feel like this is a short video, but I also it was a lot. That was a lot of energy that's moving and going to continue to move for a while. So I hope that that is feeling really good for you and that you start to see some positive transformation because of it. I think now that I have several videos, I'm realizing I don't really want to poke around on all of them to look for comments. So if you have questions or anything you want me to talk about in a future video, I would say message it in the Embodied Spirit Life Insta. That'll put everybody's comments in one thing for me to look at, whatever video you see. And then I will, so far, I think it's going to be real manageable. So I'll answer them in the next video. Okay, have a great day. Thank you for joining. And I hope you feel really nice and relaxed right now.